Mr. Kulu.
What's happening, everybody? How y'all doing?
So
Emmanuel, Mr. God is with us, huh?
What's up, bro?
Yeah.
wonderful things you've done this year, or in general, like in the last couple of years. You have a great book out, the Black Pharaoh, but the thing about it is you're an African studies. You're into African studies. 10 years of African studies or more.
Yeah, my whole life. My father is from Cameroon, so a lot of my studies came from the heritage of being born an African. And my mother is African American, so I'm on both sides. I'm on the African American side, and I'm on the African side. So, that's how it all began.
You've interviewed people like Jane Elliott. You have your own podcast.
Yeah.
Interviewed Egyptologists, and you talk about not just history and the importance of history, but you talk about how everything fits into our culture right now. So I'm just going to let you talk about you.
Yeah. For about 15 years, like my brother Guala, who just spoke, I was in the hip hop industry for a very long time. I had a record label called Teflon ENT, also inspired by brothers like Tupac Shakur, guys like Master P, guys like DMX, guys that come from that gritty grind of the street and the struggle of the street. And I've always wanted to kind of keep it real with my brothers and sisters and have them connect to understanding that, like Brother Guala mentioned, that God is in everybody's life. Even though you could be in the street, you still have to have an awareness of where you came from. So I did that for about 15 years. And I had a crew of about 20 and 30 people. And I also got bit by somebody that I thought was my friend, as we did a lot of traveling around the country. And if you want to go on YouTube and check out our hip hop journey, you can go check that out on the rise and fall of Teflon ENT, Teflon with a PH. And that will tell you about our hip hop journey. So after my 15 years in hip hop, I transitioned out of that and got back into my roots. My father passed away in 2019. And one thing he always instilled in me was to be proud of being African. And as a young man, I used to go to school and people used to be like Kulu, Zulu, Doodoo, Voodoo. And it would be my own African-American peers that would make fun of my African descent. It would never be Caucasian brothers and Caucasian people. It would always be my own people. And I would always ask them like, yo, what's up? You African too? And they'd be like, nah, I ain't African, I'm American. So when I came up with this book, I Black Pharaoh, Rise to Power, here it is here. When I posted the cover of this book, as you see, you've never seen pharaohs look like this when it comes to how America has depicted ancient Egypt. My father raised me to understand, and I remember I took a king sculpture to school, and it was a black king tut. And my teacher criticized me, said it was horribly inaccurate. Great presentation. She said it was great presentation, but horribly inaccurate according to the depiction. And my father was so upset. He came into the school, and it just caused this big rift between the teacher, and I ended up having to leave that school because the teacher, just didn't want to believe that ancient Egyptians were Black people. They were African people. So as I grew up, I started to notice, and I went to Egypt, went to Cairo, and I started to get into a lot of debates with people about, I'm looking at these Egyptian statues and I'm seeing my features. I'm seeing the features of a Black man. And I challenge any of you authors out there, when you go to places like Egypt, look at the beautiful history of your people and let that be like a mirror to you, to see yourself there. You look at the women, they wear dreads like you have in your hair, sister, right now, Sister Erica. And there's no way they were anything other than Black African people. But I entered into a lot of different debates with Egyptologists, with so-called African studies individuals who just did not want to accept that. So I said, you know what? I'm going to put out the true imagery of ancient Egypt myself. And I'm going to tell the greatest story of ancient Egypt, which happened to be a great ruler king named Tutmosis III. Tutmosis III was the greatest pharaoh. He conquered over 16 different lands, 16 different nations. And then who preceded him was Queen Hatshepsut, who I consider to be the greatest queen of ancient Egypt as well. We hear a lot about Cleopatra because Cleopatra was half Greek, but we don't hear about Hatshepsut, who was an African woman who ruled for 20 years. Now, when we talk about African women, we always hear sisters is too strong, sister, you hear that sisters is too strong or they hard-headed. Well, all my brothers and sisters out there, I want y'all to know this. African women were the first women to rule the world. The first women. That's why when a black woman walks in the room, every other woman demands their attention. Their attention is just drawn to African women, and they have a sort of fear because African women were always born strong and they were leaders, while women in Europe in those days were used more or less as a vessel for having children and things of that nature. So before any women liberations movement that happened in the 1400s or in the 1700s for the United States, we start to see that African women ruling far before that. And Hatshepsut was one of those great rulers. So I wanted to tell this story from an African perspective. I got tired of seeing the whitewashed ancient Egypt. And I've debated, man, and if you look me up, Emmanuel Kulu, you will see there's a lot of debates out there that came from me. I don't do that anymore because I found that it wasn't, gaining me anything, but just a debate. But I definitely enjoyed those processes, to have those battles, to gain my knowledge, to increase my knowledge as well. So that's pretty much my story. I'm a podcaster now. I'm also writing my second book, which is the gold edition of this book. And this will have 21 pictures in it for the gold edition. It's going to be gold in color, 14 karat gold. And it's going to have 3 extra chapters in it. So this is empowering for us to know our true roots. When we're talking about what has happened here in the United States over the last 200 years or 400 years, we have to look beyond that. Africa is the root to all humankind. So when we degrade Africa and we allow Africa to be degraded, we're degrading ourselves. So that's my motto for not just African people, but for all people. We have to connect back to our heritage in order to know where we're going in the great future.
Wow, that's cool. Does anybody have any questions for Emmanuel? I didn't know you were in the music industry.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Actually, the music industry really gave me my grind and my hustle, because in the music industry, you just can't say, hey, I'm hot, I'm dope. Everybody, you got a million rappers that say they dope, right? You got to really go out there and prove it and really go out there and hustle. So with my book, I was able to effectively do that. Also hustle my book the same way I was hustling music. So, and everybody says they're hot, but you got to convince people to make them believers. And it's no different with books. You also have to make them believers as well.
Emmanuel,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sitting here listening. This is such an interesting story that you're telling, and you tell it with such passion. I can see that passion, hear that passion, feel that passion, so I know that you put all of that into the book. I'm just sitting here wondering, because I have grandchildren
Mm-hmm.
who will never even know about these stories,
Mm-hmm.
except for authors like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some way that it's possible to try to get some of the things that you have in the book or the book itself into the school systems or into the private learning systems, or have you considered that?
We are doing a ancient African studies curriculum right now for New York State, is where we're going to start with. In New York State, if you know, New York State is the best for education. I got a couple of Egyptologists that support the Black African ancient Egypt story. if you know anything about ancient Greece or ancient Rome, you would know that all of the stuff was taken from Egypt that has to do with knowledge, at least. So we're trying to connect the dots with that, with history. We want to start in high school, and obviously we want to make it an option for college first. But we're going to submit that probably by next year, and hopefully with all the commotion about what happened with injustice, hopefully we can get some ground going. So that's one way. The second way I'm going to be doing is releasing a children's edition of this book as well. So we'll have children's books for the youth. I definitely thought about that because I feel like we need to see ourselves in history. We have been completely taken out of history when it comes to our school system. And we have to understand that life did not start in Europe. Okay, life did not stop in Europe. And even Professor Leakey, who is a scholar, for a European scholar, who mentioned that everything started around Eritrea and Africa area. So with the first woman who we know as Lucy that they ever found. So all of that history, we have to bring it back. I mean, life didn't start in Greece. It didn't start in Rome. There was ancient Egypt. There was ancient Mali. There was Zululand. There were so many different African kingdoms, the Great Zimbabwe, the Exumite Kingdom, so many great kingdoms that we have been separated as an African American culture. And we need that. We need to be empowered by our history. You know, when my son grows up, he doesn't need to see, he needs to look into the Bible and know that there's Black history all throughout the Bible. You know, anytime you hear about Egypt, you hear about Cush, you hear about the Israelites, these were people of color. And while we're dealing with colorism here in this country, we need to know that our people have done great things in our history, and we can still do those same things today.
Yeah, I want to applaud you for writing that book, man, because that's something that I've been trying to instill in both of my children. Like, don't believe the narrative. There's so much out there. You know, growing up in South Carolina, very rural county, very prejudiced state at the time I was there, you know, I thank God I went to a predominantly Black school, so they really pushed a lot of Black history. But once I left South Carolina, it disappeared. Like my son now in high school, if I don't tell him, he don't get it. You know, so I applaud you for writing that book, and I promise you, I will be purchasing that book. I want to see what you got in there, because that is some of the stuff that I definitely have been telling my son, and now I can actually do, you know, if you got it where I can already begin my research, because it's hard finding. Like you said, it's been whitewashed, it's been pushed out, it's been covered up. So it's hard finding certain information. So thank you, and you have a buyer.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, brother.
Great.
I definitely would like to speak on that. Kulu, man, you made a real serious point. I have a talk show like I mentioned earlier, and the name of it is Believe the Hype. A lot of people say don't believe the hype, right? And I got this quote is believe the hype. And I want to really pinpoint back on what I told you about, you know, about the C murder and, you know, him being in prison for a crime that he didn't commit, and everybody know that he didn't commit it. It's the same thing of what you're saying about the people reject you and they don't want to accept it. Even those people themselves who don't want to accept it, they really know that you're telling the truth. And they really know that you are. And I find it appalling for people of a different race to reject the truth. The Israelites, just like you said, it goes deep. Yes, they're colored people. It goes deeper into it like that. Who are the Israelites? And you go from the 12 tribes of Israel. The tribe of Judah is literally us Black folks. We are the ones that are the tribe of Judah. But you go into other tribes that were Haitians, that were Mexicans, there were different races, but they are races of color.
Mhm.
They came from all of those other races that are like, the Hispanics or Mexicans. They are of color. And a lot of people don't know about who the 12 tribes of Israel are, but all of them are all of color.
Mhm.
And it comes just from like what you're saying about they just, man, us as black people, and actually the TV station that I'm on is an African owned company. It's owned by black folk from Nigeria. And us as a people really do not understand what is going on. And it's one of the things that's really holding us back as a people, because divide, control, conquer.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons of why it's taken us so long to get so far of where we need to be. Because guess what? When I was in the streets, who ratted on me? My people. When I was attempted to be murdered, who did it? My people. When I have my business that's booming, who want to restrict me? My people. But it's not even of that. It goes to back of what you're saying about the restrictions and the divide, control, conquer, and they don't understand that. But I want to definitely commend you, because everything that you're saying is true.
Mhm.
Even what's funny about it and strange about it is not just America, and it's not just Africa. Even in China, the first people who populated that land was people of color.
Mhm.
We as a people populated at least, now I'm saying this out of my own mouth, but at least 95 or 90% of the world, we populated it first. We
Mhm.
were the first travelers. We were the first builders. We were the first cookers. We was the first hunters. We was the first kings and queens, and we will be the last kings and queens to reside on this earth.
Mhm.
I am not a racist, man. I actually love white people because I found some good ones. You know what I'm saying? So I know all of them are not the same. You know what I mean? But what I will say is, you're right. A lot of the younger people that are coming up, like Sister said, they don't know, because all they see is the picture that the liars paint,
Right.
right? But all of the people that are our age, they know it. If we could find a way, like you doing with that book, to incite it, you know what I mean? Believe and hype it. Oh man, it'll be super dope, man. So I commend you on doing that job. Salute, my brother.
We working on trying to get Idris Elba to play the Pharaoh. We're trying to get this written in a movie script as well. So that's something that's in talk, and possibly Carrie Hilson to be playing the Queen. But we need to see ourselves on. When Black Panther came out, that was like amazing for us. And I don't know how far back some of you go back, but Shaka Zulu, 1986, was the biggest watched television, and that's my great ancestor, by the way. So if you look at the name Kulu and Zulu, we are related through the Bantu tribe and the Mokendo Moyenge. But now here's the thing. Shaka Zulu was the most watched TV series of all time, and you wouldn't even know about it. It was the most watched TV series of all time from 1986 to 1996. So clearly there is an interest in African history with not just the Black community, but all over the world, because the great mysteries of gold, great mysteries of spirituality, the great mysteries of fashion, how did they, cosmetology, all of these things that the pharaohs did way before it was done in Europe or done here in the Americas. So many things that we just need to know about our greatness that we created. And I always challenge anybody, Eurocentrics this particularly. I always challenge them and say, if the pyramids were built by someone other than Africans, then tell me how come the pyramids weren't duplicated in places like Europe, so to speak. But you go just south of Egypt, and I've seen these with my own eyes, and you go to Nubia, which they called Cush in the Bible. You will see more pyramids in Cush that are in Egypt than are in Egypt. okay, and great ruins of Kush African culture that coexisted with the great Egyptian empire. Then you go down to Mali, then you go down to modern day Nigeria, and there are pyramids there as well. So this was things that Africans were doing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, north, west, east, and south. There was no such thing as sub-Saharan Africa before 1979. They created that term, sub-Saharan, which is below the Sahara, which is also below Egypt and below Nubia. They wanted to separate Northern Africa from Southern Africa, Central and Southern Africa. So this is how Africa was carved up because of the resources, sucking the resources out from the Arabs and also from the Europeans as well. So this is things that we just have to know about our history, and also things that we need to empower our kids to reclaim that glory. To, you can be more than just being a MC. You can be more than just an athlete. You can be more than being a singer, a person of just talent. You can be anything you want because your people started civilization. And as long as we know that, we can do anything.
I'm gonna say this too, because I feel very strongly about it, because I know me and Emmanuel talked about this before at least twice, that I don't want to see another movie about houses getting burnt down. I don't want to see another movie about 12 Years a Slave. I don't want to see another Roots. I don't want to see another one of that, because I'm thinking, it's very tiring to see people tying their whole existence to this negative time period when there's thousands and hundreds of thousands of years before of life, before this
400 years. What I always say, Erica, is what's 400 years of slavery to 3,000 years of glory?
Exactly. And then the desire for the movies, I think the thing is, it's not that like there is any lack of desire for these movies. The thing is, there's been a wall put up where the depiction of us in the movies was blocked. They did not want Michael Jackson to be a Pharaoh in Remember the Time, so he had to pay for that video himself, right? And then there was the African Queen, and there's all these movies where the actresses were depicted as white, or so there was never a lack of desire. People love, if you show them something about Egypt, they love that. And that's black, white, anybody. I think there's this desire to know. But when you have an industry that blocks the truth, there lies the problem. Because I don't think anybody has a problem with it. I think most people, if they open a textbook and they see, the white Pharaoh, that's because that's what the book said. It's not because they have this argument. They've also been mistreated and misled. They've also been misled. Miseducated. So it isn't even their fault. If you see somebody at your job, or what I'm saying, like in the street, that doesn't know, it's not even their fault. We have all been snowed. We've all been,
as brother Gwala just mentioned. Yeah. As he just mentioned, that if you connect ancient Egypt to Africa, to Black Africa, you are connecting the Bible to African people, to Black people.
Right.
Because if you know anything about the Bible, where did Joseph, who was one of the forefathers of the Israelites, Joseph married Egyptian women. His brothers married Egyptian women. So all of the Israelites were mixed with Egyptian people who were Black people. So if you want to say that the Israelites weren't Black people, well, they intermarried with Egyptians, and then over time they became a mixed race. Right. So no matter what people say, you're going to have to include Africa in history. And this is why they had to remove Egypt from Africa in order to basically, whitewash history.
Hey guys, I gotta jump in. I'm loving this conversation, and I'm gonna be honest with you. We could talk about this all night. Just this right here, all jokes aside. But I want to say this real quick. if you study history, and if you look at Greek history, and then look at Egyptian history, if you really pay attention, you will see that the Greek philosophers, they got a lot of their information, I'm going to say about 99.9%, from the Egyptians. If you look at their art, if you look at everything, you can see everything. If you study Egyptian history, you will know that the Egyptians, they know all about all the different black seed oils and different things for the health. But then you got Hippocrates, who supposedly taught all this stuff. Where did he learn it from? He learned it from the Egyptians. Yes, but see, they don't discuss that. They make you think the Greeks started everything. Actually, the Greeks got all the information from the Egyptians. They went back to their land and then they just put it in their own words, so to speak. But a lot of people forget, that the Egyptians started a lot of different things. And if you really study history, you will see a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, a lot of medicines came from Egypt. But people don't see that. It's very important information. So the problem a lot of us have is we don't know our history. We don't study history. You have to study history because history allows you to see where we are today and why we are where we are today. But that's very important, but they just totally omit that, which is critical for our own self-esteem, our healing, and our advancement as a people.
Well, this book is for absolutely everybody.
I'm sorry not to cut you off. I have one more thing that I want to speak on about that, because I want to just bring forth facts while we are actually on live, right? In the Bible, I'm going to let you know exactly who the 12 tribes of Israel is for whoever is listening. In the Bible of John, chapter 8 and the 32nd verse, it says, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." And this is the truth of who the 12 tribes of Israel are. All these people are of color. Number one is Judah. Judah is the Negroes. Number two is Benjamin. And those people are the West Indians. Number three is Levi, a Levi. Those people of that tribe are Haitians. Then you have Simeon, number 4. Those people are the Dominicans. Then you have Zebulon, and those people are the Guatemalas in Panama. And number 6, you have Ephraim, and those people are the Puerto Ricans. And number 7, you have Manasseh, however you pronounce that, and those people are the Cubans. The 8th tribe you have is Gad, and those people are the North American Indians. Number 9 is the tribe of Reuben, and those people are the Somalian Indians. Number 10 is Nefertiti, and those are the Argentinas in Chile. In number 11, you have the tribe of Asher. Those people are the Colombian to the Uruguay. I don't know how you spell it, how you pronounce it, but it's Uruguay. And number 12, the final tribe is number 12 is Issachar, and those people are the Mexicans. That is the 12 tribes of Judah that is in the Bible. Those are the 12 tribes of Israel who are in the Bible, and that is facts, no fiction.
Wow, that's good information. I mean, no one was expecting to get that tonight. That was good.